Today on Radio Boat Anchor, I'm going to restore this vintage 1985 Emerson CTR925 Boombox that I recently purchased on eBay. The Emerson CTR925 was the first boombox I ever owned. I purchased it in 1985 using my paper route money. This entry-level boombox sold for $49.99 at our local Kmart. My only other choice at this price point was an entry-level boombox from a company called CEC. I purchased the Emerson boombox due to brand recognition. I replaced my Emerson CTR925 with the Magnavox D443 boombox similar to the one in this picture. I purchased it from our local wholesale club for $85 using my dad's membership. On the plus side, the Magnavox also had two shortwave bands in addition to standard AM and FM bands. As powerful as this boombox looked, its 5-speaker system only output 7.2 watts total. This was evident when you opened up the boombox and looked at the small voice coils attached to the speaker cones. In addition, I had constant problems with the tape deck breaking. The complete tape mechanism was built out of nylon plastic. Towards the end of this boombox's life, the record head would intermittently energize during play mode, ruining several of my pre-recorded music tapes. Back to the Emerson CTR925 restore. Initial testing. I found a suitable power cord in my junk drawer for my recently purchased Emerson CTR925 boombox. This boombox would only intermittently play in AM and FM modes when powered by AC, or under battery power. Based on the problems my Emerson CTR925 boombox was having, I decided to perform a complete restore. Disassembly. The first step was to remove the 4 C batteries required for mobile operation that were installed during initial testing. Then 4 screws were removed from the back cover. Before the front cover can be removed, the volume knobs and function switches must be removed. They just pull off. I had to be careful during the separation of the front from the back cover, as the speakers are connected to the printed circuit board. It was time to separate the front and back covers. 3 wires connected to the speakers had to be desoldered from the printed circuit board in order to do so. The plastic piece behind the tuning indicator was removed. It just snapped in place. I noticed during disassembly that my Emerson CTR925 boombox only has one condenser mic. Despite having a mounting location for a second one, most likely Emerson removed the second condenser mic and circuitry to achieve a certain price point. The tape mechanism needed to be removed in order to gain access to the printed circuit board. It was held in place with 4 screws. All wires needed to be disconnected between the tape mechanism and the printed circuit board before it could be completely removed. Ground, motor, and switch connections were desoldered from the left side of the printed circuit board. Tape record head connections and tape read head connections were desoldered as well. The tape mechanism was slid downward so as to avoid the tuning dial indicator, then flipped over, so that the ground connection could be removed. Looks like this boombox might have had some water intrusion at the bottom as this connection was very rusty. Several screws held the printed circuit board to the back cover. 2 on the left side. 2 screws held the power transformer in place to the back cover. These screws had to be removed as well. I noticed a random disconnected green wire. I figured out where it needed to be connected later in this video. Then another 2 screws were removed from the right side. Once the connection to the external telescopic antenna was desoldered, the printed circuit board with power transformer was then completely removed from the back cover. I decided to detach the power transformer from the printed circuit board in order to make the printed circuit board easier to handle. 4 power connections were desoldered from the printed circuit board. Finally, the printed circuit board was free and clear. Electrolytic capacitor replacement. Electrolytic capacitors have a finite lifetime. As they age, the electrolyte dries up, causing their capacitance to fall in value. This is most evident in power supply filter capacitors. You will hear AC hum from the speaker of the equipment as the filter capacitor's capacitance drops in value. Replacement electrolytic capacitors must meet the capacitance and meet or exceed the working voltage of the capacitors they are replacing. In addition, electrolytic capacitors are polarized and must be replaced with the right polarity in the circuit. On modern electrolytic capacitors, there should be a designation indicating the negative lead. Every electrolytic capacitor was replaced on the printed circuit board. I tested all replacement electrolytic capacitors with my Mega 328 component tester before installation. I marked each replaced capacitor with a permanent red marker. I pulled all the required replacement capacitor values trays. Looks like the printed circuit board sustained some moisture damage. Here is my electrolytic capacitor replacement setup. During electrolytic capacitor replacement, I noticed some damage around the right volume potentiometer. I desoldered the right volume control potentiometer from the printed circuit board and removed the broken piece. The broken piece was superglued back in place. The right volume control potentiometer was resoldered to the printed circuit board and bolted back to the frame. Cleaning and lubrication. All switches, potentiometers, and jacks were treated to Deoxit D5 contact cleaner. I used a little GNS Hypo jeweler cement to secure the screen tape to the printed circuit board. All potentiometers, switches, and tuning dial pulleys were treated to Labelle 107 plastic-friendly oil. The screw holding the tuning dial pulley was removed. The tuning dial pulley was turned upside down, keeping the tension on the tuning cord, so that I could lubricate the tuning capacitor's shaft. The tuning dial was then secured in place with a single screw. Initial testing. I used a 6-volt lantern battery to power the printed circuit board during testing. Two issues became apparent. The function switch did not work in the FM position. Also, AM radio stations would cut out when the printed circuit board was flexed. I determined that there was an issue with the function switch. The function switch was desoldered from the printed circuit board so that it could be serviced. I placed the function switch upside down in my suction cup vise, then I bent back the 6 metal tabs, allowing access to the function switch contacts. Deoxit D5 was used to clean the contacts and sliders. The function switch was then reassembled and the metal tabs bent back in place. I then used my multimeter in continuity mode to test all contact positions. My mini hook test leads made function switch testing easier. The function switch was reinserted into the printed circuit board and resoldered back in place. The other intermittent issue when AM radio cuts out was caused by a cold solder joint somewhere on the printed circuit board. I couldn't track down the cold solder joint. Finally, I got frustrated and touched up each and every solder joint on the foil side of the printed circuit board. I used a tie strap to secure the tuning dial cord in place, then remove the dial pulley screw, so that I could flip up the dial pulley, allowing me to touch up the solder joints underneath it. The dial cord pulley was then secured in place with a single screw. Testing this time was successful with AM and FM modes, including FM stereo, functioning perfectly.
Not long ago, and he invited me on to go over that play with some, but I wasn't able to go. Cody
Bellinger. Back cover cleaning and repair. The back cover was in need of a good cleaning and repair. Windex, my go-to cleaner, was used to clean both the inside and outside of the back cover. Q-tips moistened with Windex were used to get into hard-to-reach places. I used a jeweler screwdriver with a wet paper towel to clean the cooling vents on the outside of the back cover. Both the positive and negative battery contacts in the battery tray were corroded, preventing good electrical contact. I used my Dremel with wire brush attachment to clean them. I determined that the green wire from the battery tray that was not connected to anything needed to be soldered to the interlock on the AC connector. The interlock disconnects battery power when the AC cord is connected. I tinned the wire in preparation for soldering it to the interlock. The negative connection solder lug that connects to the tape mechanism was very rusty. I desoldered it from the black wires, then used my Dremel wire brush to clean it up. It was then soldered back to the black wires. The telescopic FM antenna's chrome was oxidized. I removed it for polishing. It was held in place with a single screw. I was careful not to lose the 2 copper washers that aid in making good electrical contact to the antenna base. The antenna was put into the chuck of my cordless drill. I applied McGuire's motorcycle all-metal polish to a paper towel. The antenna was spun on the drill while the polish was applied. This removed all oxidation. Armor All was applied to the back cover in order to restore its luster. Before reinstalling the antenna, it is important to install the 2 copper washers between the antenna and antenna base. The back cover was ready for reassembly. Printed circuit board reinstall. The FM antenna lead was resoldered to the telescopic antenna mount. Then the printed circuit board was reinstalled into the back cover. I determined that there was an issue with the interlock switch attached to the AC connector. The interlock switch disconnects the battery power when the AC cord is connected. I used 800 grit sandpaper to clean the interlock switch contacts. The interlock switch was thoroughly tested using the continuity function on my multimeter. Continuity was tested both with the AC cord connected and removed. The AC cord was not plugged into household current during this testing. The power transformer was then remounted to the back cover using 2 screws. The green wire was resoldered to the interlock switch. Then the red and white wires were resoldered to the printed circuit board. The transformer connections were resoldered to the printed circuit board as well. In addition, the black negative wire was resoldered to the printed circuit board. The speakers were once again connected to the printed circuit board using alligator clips. Batteries were then installed into the back cover. AM and FM modes were again tested, powered by batteries and AC household current. Tape mechanism cleaning, lubrication, and installation. The tape mechanism is pretty much a self-contained unit with several wires that had to be resoldered to the printed circuit board during installation. It was thoroughly cleaned using my go-to cleaner, Windex. Tape cleaning head swabs, which I have abundance of, were moistened with Windex and used to get into tight spots for cleaning. The underside of the tape mechanism was cleaned with Windex as well. The tape mechanism's negative connection point was rusty. I used my Dremel with a rotary sanding drum to clean it up. The tape mechanism's rusty negative connection screw was placed in my cordless drill's chuck. Then I applied sandpaper to the screw head while I was turning. Sandpaper was also used to clean the screw head slot. The tape mechanism's negative connection screw was temporarily installed so that I wouldn't lose it. Tape head cleaner swabs moistened with denatured alcohol were used to clean the play and record head, pincher roller, and capstan. Label 107 plastic-friendly oil was used to lubricate the pinch roller arm and pinch roller, capstan, supply reel, idler pulley, associated gears, and take-up reel. Label 106 PTFE grease was used to lubricate the piano switch mechanism, including the record, rewind, fast forward, play, stop, and eject. PTFE grease was also used to lubricate the underside of the tape mechanism as well. The eject mechanism was lubricated with model train oil instead. Only 1 screw needed to be removed in order to replace the tape mechanism drive belt. This allowed the capstan bracket to be moved aside, giving access to the belt. I purchased drive belt assortments, 50 pieces in bulk directly from China, for about $10 including shipping. This beats paying $20 plus shipping for an individual drive belt. It took a little while, but eventually I found a perfect match. The new drive belt was then installed, with a single screw holding the capstan bracket in place. Several connections needed to be resoldered to the printed circuit board before the tape mechanism could be mounted. To the left side, the tape motor, switch, and ground connections. To the right side, the read and record tape head connections. There are 2 connections toward the bottom of the tape mechanism. The black or negative connection is fastened with screws to the tape mechanism's frame and one of the screws holding the power transformer in place. 4 screws hold the tape mechanism in place to the back panel. A ceramic capacitor is attached to the upper right screw. The other side of the capacitor is soldered to the metal shield of one of the IF transformers. An interesting thing to note is that the CTR925 employs only a mono record head. It can only record mono and not stereo through the microphone or the radio using the tape monitor mode. It is important that this lever comes in contact with the play record switch that changes the CTR925 Boombox from tape play to tape record mode. This lever can be manipulated from the top after the tape mechanism has been installed. Here is what the play record switch looks like under the tape mechanism. Time to test the tape mechanism. Batteries were installed and I used alligator clips to connect the speakers to the printed circuit board. Success! The tape mechanism worked as expected. It was then time to install the plastic piece behind the tuning indicator. It just snapped in place. All the wiring on the left side of the tape mechanism was neatened up with a single zip tie. Final assembly. The tuning dial knob was damaged where it connects to the shaft. Half of it was missing. The remaining half was secured to the tuning dial shaft with a single screw. The speakers installed into the front cover. Connections were resoldered to the printed circuit board. I forgot to clean the inside of the front cover before assembly. Windex to the rescue. The front cover was then installed over the back. Then the boombox was turned over. 4 long screws that hold the front and back covers together were installed. This was the ideal time to install the required 4C batteries and battery cover. The front cover of my Emerson CTR925 Boombox was thoroughly cleaned with Windex. Tape cleaning head swabs moistened with Windex were used to thoroughly clean the tape compartment. The cleaned volume control knobs were reinstalled, making sure they pointed to min or minimum when turned fully counterclockwise. The cleaned function switches were then reinstalled in the right orientation. Conclusion. Final testing under battery power.
And that's it. You play the Bruins twice, and that was the end of the Bruins until the playoffs. And I hadn't even been there.
And testing under household AC current.
It's back this year, Rangers and Penguins. And speaking of the Bills, the Bills game with Kansas City right in between. So that's Harper Road. Power cables.
After replacing the electrolytic capacitors, servicing the controls and tape mechanism, and repairing several electrical and mechanical issues, this 1985 Emerson CTR925 Boombox is once again working as it did over 40 years ago. Please like this post and subscribe to Radio Boat Anchor so that you're alerted my future posts. Thank you.